There is a version of you that loves comfort, that avoids pain, that waits for the right time. That version is holding your future hostage, and tonight, you don't negotiate with it. You end it. The greatest enemy you face is not the world. It's the weaker version of you. Not the people who doubt you. Not the circumstances that slowed you down. Not the past that tried to break you. Those are only distractions. The real battle has always been internal, quiet, and personal. It's the voice inside you that chooses comfort over courage, the part of you that knows what must be done but hesitates anyway. While you wait for conditions to improve, that weaker version grows stronger, feeding on excuses, fear, and delay, slowly convincing you that this is all life has to offer. That weaker version of you doesn't attack loudly. It whispers. It tells you to rest when you should push, to wait when you should act, to stay silent when you should speak. It dresses itself as patience, as realism, as being careful. It tells you there's time, that tomorrow will be easier, that someone else has it worse, so you shouldn't complain. And before you realize it, years pass, potential fades, and the fire you once had becomes a memory. Not because the world defeated you, but because you allowed the easier path to feel reasonable. Every dream you've delayed, every standard you lowered, every promise you broke to yourself strengthened that weaker version. It learned your patterns. It knows when you're tired, when you're emotional, when you're vulnerable. It waits for those moments to take control, to keep you exactly where you are. And the most dangerous part is that it feels familiar. It feels safe. But safety has never built greatness. Comfort has never created power. The life you want exists beyond the version of you that avoids struggle, avoids responsibility, and avoids discomfort. To move forward, you must be willing to confront that version of yourself without mercy, not with anger, but with clarity. You must recognize that growth requires conflict, and that the hardest fight you'll ever face is the one where no one is watching. The discipline to show up when motivation disappears, the strength to act without approval, the courage to choose pain over regret, all of it demands that the weaker version of you loses control, piece by piece, day by day. Comfort is a silent killer of dreams. It doesn't arrive with chaos or destruction, and it never announces its presence. It settles in slowly, disguising itself as peace, routine, and stability. It convinces you that you've earned rest, that there's no urgency, that pushing harder can wait. And because it feels harmless, you allow it to stay. Days become predictable, effort becomes optional, and ambition slowly fades into the background. Comfort doesn't demand anything from you, and that's exactly why it's dangerous. It asks for nothing while quietly taking everything you could have become. Dreams require tension, pressure, and discomfort to survive. They need you to stretch beyond what feels safe and familiar. Comfort removes that tension. It softens your edges and dulls your hunger. You stop challenging yourself, not because you can't, but because you no longer feel the need to. The fire that once kept you awake at night gets replaced by convenience and distraction. You tell yourself you'll get serious later, once the timing feels right, once life slows down, once you feel ready. But comfort thrives on delay, and every delay weakens the connection between who you are and who you wanted to be. The most destructive thing about comfort is that it feels like progress. You're busy, but not advancing. You're occupied, but not building. You're surviving, but not growing. Comfort teaches you to accept average results in exchange for emotional safety. It lowers your tolerance for struggle and increases your resistance to effort. Slowly, you begin to fear the very things that once inspired you: risk, failure, effort, and change. And without realizing it, you start protecting your comfort more than your future, choosing short-term ease over long-term fulfillment, choosing familiarity over possibility, choosing what feels good now over what would make you proud later. Discipline hurts now, but regret bleeds forever. Discipline demands something from you in the present moment. When your body is tired, your mind is resistant, and every excuse feels reasonable. It asks you to wake up earlier than you want to stay focused when distractions are easier, to choose effort when comfort is calling your name. The pain of discipline is immediate and honest. You feel it in the strain, in the repetition, in the sacrifice of pleasures you could have had if you chose the easier path. It is sharp but temporary, and it only lasts as long as the action itself. Regret, on the other hand, is quiet at first. It doesn't hurt right away. It waits. It grows in the background while you postpone, hesitate, and settle. Regret shows up years later when opportunities have passed and time can't be negotiated with anymore. It bleeds in moments of silence, in late nights when you replay the chances you didn't take and the standards you abandoned. Unlike discipline, regret doesn't build you. It weakens you. It drains confidence and replaces ambition with self-blame, because deep down you know the outcome could have been different if you had acted when it mattered. Discipline builds a kind of pain that strengthens you. Each time you choose it, you sharpen your character and reinforce self-respect. You begin to trust yourself because you do what you said you would do, even when it's uncomfortable. That trust becomes momentum, and momentum becomes identity. Regret does the opposite. It erodes belief in yourself. It reminds you of the gap between your potential and your reality, a gap created not by lack of ability, but by lack of action. The pain of discipline passes when the work is done, but the pain of regret stays, revisiting you again and again, long after the moment to act is gone. No one is coming to save you. Responsibility is the turning point. This realization is uncomfortable because it removes every familiar excuse. It strips away the hope that someone else will fix what's broken, open the right door, or arrive at the perfect moment to change everything for you. Waiting feels easier than acting, and blaming circumstances feels lighter than carrying the weight of your own choices. But the longer you wait for rescue, the longer your life remains on pause, controlled by expectations that were never promised to you in the first place. Responsibility is the moment you stop asking why things happen to you and start asking what you are going to do about them. It doesn't deny hardship or pretend the past was fair. It simply refuses to let the past dictate the future. Taking responsibility means accepting that your current position, no matter how unfair it feels, is now yours to deal with. That truth can feel heavy, but it is also the first moment of real power. When you own your decisions, you also reclaim your ability to change them. Most people avoid responsibility because it removes the comfort of victimhood. As long as someone else is to blame, you don't have to act. You don't have to risk failure. Responsibility removes that shelter and forces you to confront your habits, your discipline, and your standards. It asks you to look honestly at where you are falling short, not to shame you, but to show you where growth is required. Every improvement in your life begins the moment you stop waiting for permission and start taking ownership. When responsibility becomes your foundation, your mindset shifts. You stop reacting to life and start shaping it. You no longer waste energy on resentment or comparison because your focus turns inward, toward execution and progress. The world may not change immediately, but you do, and that change alters how every challenge meets you, because control returns to your hands where it has always belonged. Growth requires sacrifice, isolation, and uncomfortable truth. Real growth is not built in moments of ease or approval, but in the quiet decisions where you choose what matters over what feels good. Sacrifice means letting go of habits, relationships, and routines that once brought comfort but now limit progress. It is the willingness to trade short-term pleasure for long-term development, to give up distractions that dilute focus, and to accept that becoming better will cost you parts of the life you've grown used to. Sacrifice is not about loss alone, but about exchange, and the price is always paid up front. Isolation is often misunderstood, but it is a necessary environment for transformation. Growth demands periods where you step away from noise, opinions, and constant validation. In isolation, you are forced to confront your thoughts without distraction and your actions without excuses. It is where discipline is tested and self-awareness is sharpened. While others may see isolation as loneliness, it is actually alignment, a phase where you reconnect with your goals and rebuild your standards without outside influence. Isolation strips away false confidence and exposes whether your commitment is real or just performative. Uncomfortable truth is the final requirement and the one most people avoid. Growth cannot coexist with self-deception. You must be willing to admit where you are undisciplined, where you are inconsistent, and where you have chosen comfort over progress. This truth is uncomfortable because it removes blame and forces accountability. It challenges the stories you've told yourself to stay the same. Facing truth means accepting that potential means nothing without action, and that intention does not equal effort. When you stop lying to yourself, you gain clarity, and clarity creates direction. Growth begins the moment you stop negotiating with reality and start responding to it with honesty and commitment. You must end who you were to become who you're meant to be. Transformation is not about adding more to your life, but about removing what no longer belongs. The version of you that carried old habits, old fears, and old limits cannot walk into a future that demands more strength, more clarity, and more discipline. Growth requires endings, and endings are rarely gentle. They involve letting go of familiar behaviors, comfortable identities, and patterns that once served a purpose, but now hold you back. Holding on to who you were out of loyalty or nostalgia only delays who you could become. Ending an old version of yourself is uncomfortable because it feels like loss. You lose excuses, familiar reactions, and the safety of being understood by people who only know you as you were. Change disrupts expectations, both yours and others. When you begin to evolve, not everyone will recognize you, and some will resist the shift because it challenges their own stagnation. But becoming who you're meant to be requires the courage to disappoint the past, to stop living by outdated standards, and to accept that growth will change how you are seen and how you see yourself. There is no transformation without identity conflict. You cannot think like your future self while acting like your past self. Ending who you were means taking responsibility for your patterns and consciously choosing new ones, even when they feel unnatural at first. Discipline replaces impulse. Awareness replaces denial. Action replaces intention. Each decision becomes a statement of who you are no longer willing to be. Over time, those decisions compound and the old version of you fades, not because you hate who you were, but because you respect who you are becoming. Ending the old self is not an act of destruction, but an act of alignment, a deliberate step toward the life that has been waiting for you to rise into it. Leave the old version of you where it belongs, in the past. Step forward without apology, without hesitation, without looking back. What you become next is built by what you refuse to remain.